Ah, the Vortex StrikeFire 2. For any of you that are familiar with the scope, I reviewed it several months ago and found that I really enjoy it. It's not bad. Comes in about $150 or so, maybe a little bit less. The only real complaint I had was how big it is and how narrow the field of view is looking through it. Other than that, though, it feels pretty robust and it looks, all right. One thing that I really liked about it was the fact that it has a 30mm tube that you can put any basic factory optic scope mount on. So you could do whatever you want, however you want it, and it just works. It's a very clever idea. So what we have right now is about an 8x8 inch target about 50 yards. So there we are. I'm going to zoom in a little bit to hopefully illustrate that a little bit better. And we're just above it. So what I'm going to do now, which is going to be important for the rest of the video, is completely unmount it and remount it in the exact same location to ensure that it's at least holding zero enough. Now I know this isn't very precise, but for what I'm going to be doing it for, it's going to be perfect. So we're right at around the same spot. So at 50 yards, maybe that was an inch shift, there or thereabouts. And that's going to be very important, because what I'm going to do is take this optic and run it through a myriad of different ideas that I've come up with literally about 5 minutes ago and see how well it can withstand it. So what do I have? I got a bucket of water, a bucket of sand, some dirt, and some rock. And this thing is going to be dropped, dunked, and shaken to death. I don't know if you can see it. There we go. So it is on, it is working. I'm going to leave the caps closed for most of this because I feel that you're going to be running around with this thing, take it out of your case at the range, and caps should be closed. Plus it's on there, so why not start with it? And the first thing I'm going to do is just do a water test. I'm just going to take a couple of cups of water, throw it on top, see if it still works. Nothing really surprising about that. After that, I'm going to do a drop test. About 3 feet onto dirt, then a drop test 3 feet onto rock. Then I'm going to do a dirt and sand test where I'm going to put it in there, again with the caps all on, and shake it about for, I don't know, a minute or two. If it passes that, I'm going to then do a water test where I'm going to submerge it in the bucket for a few minutes. Again, if it passes that, I'm going to drop it from about 6 feet onto rock. Now, how I'm going to drop it's going to be, I think, pretty pivotal. I'm going to drop it straight on top of the scope. I feel that if you're going to take this off of your gun, or take your gun out of your case at the range, or if you're hiking it through the mountains or something like that, odds are, just like if you have a very small end mill that's very important, it's going to land on the most important part, which would be right smack top of the optic. So all the drops are going to be held like this and drop straight down. I don't think that the dirt is going to do anything. In fact, I don't even think the rock is going to do anything at 3 feet for this optic, but we're about to find out. If it withstands the 6-foot drop test from onto rock, I'm then going to repeat the entire series with the caps open. And if it still withstands that, I'm literally going to throw this into the ground as hard as I can until it breaks. I think this is going to be a fairly important test because, you know what? If you buy this, what can it withstand? Can you trust your life to it and if it failing? Let's find out, shall we? So I'm going to leave my list over here in case I forget what's going on. And first things first, we're going to just do a quick water test. This is pretending if, it's raining outside or something like that, or you accidentally drop your water bottle on it inside your range bag. It's getting wet, sure, but it's not really getting into all the seals that you might think about. And for good measure, I'm going to make sure I really get that control portion because, you know what, there's a lot of important buttons over there, just like these caps are pretty important. And I want to know if they're actually going to hold up. I think that's pretty good. Now I'm going to give it a quick shake, and we're going to see if it still works. Well, no surprise there, it's still on. See if I can get that for you guys. That's a no-brainer. I didn't think that was going to fail. So let's drop this onto dirt. Now this is pretty soft soil, bit of mulch on top. Again, I don't think this is really going to do much, but let's find out. You know what? I'm going to drop it from the side of the pool, which is about breast high for me. Yeah, I don't think this is going to do anything. No surprise, it's still on. But you know what? I'm gonna go mount this up right now, and we're gonna see if it's still held 0. Making sure that there's no dirt inside the mount. And what do you know? It's still on target. Well, like I said, no surprise there. But now let's try something a little bit more intimidating. This is pretty solid, whether it be a rock when you're hiking through the mountains or concrete floor at your shooting range. That's about right. That one landed on the scope cap. It got scratched up pretty good. It's still on, but you know what? Do I even bother testing it yet? No. I want to make sure I drop it so this way it hits the controls. That was a little bit better. And it landed right on top of the cap for the elevation turret. And a little bit on the battery compartment. So, yep, it's still on. Again, no surprise there. Let me mount this thing up and we'll take a look at it. Alright, so it's a bit of a shift, but you know what? That could just be the mount. Barely anything, I'd reckon. And you know what? If you dropped it like that, 50 yards, it's maybe an inch, inch and a half difference. But again, that could just be how it's mounting up to my rail. All in all, pretty damn impressive. Next is going to be the sand test, but before I do the sand test, I'm going to blow this thing off of any excess moisture that it might have, because I don't want to have this thing go through the gloppity mud that in-range TV does for their rifles, even though that might be on the list further down the line one day. But I think this sand, which is a mixture of some very finite dust, as you can see, and tiny little pebbles, is going to be more than sufficient at putting this thing through its paces. So let's get that thing really in there. Let's cover it up. Now let's start shaking. And yes, I did. So I'm going to give this a good just shake. Notice all the dust that's coming out of this thing. I think that's pretty good. Whew. We're going to put those desk covers to the test right now, ladies and gentlemen. That thing looks like it's been through a couple of tours. Now, before I blow it off, so the back cover has a little bit of dirt in there, a little bit around the outside seal, but blow it off, glass is clean. Hard to pick up, but trust me, there's nothing really in there. And it's still on, which is cool. All right, I'm going to leave this closed for right now. Let's test the front. Again, a little bit of dust around there, but overall, the glass is actually in very good shape. I'm going to close this up, blow this off. All right. With the exception of it just being a little dirty, it seems to be in pretty good shape. You know what? We might as well throw it up on the rail and see if it's even held 0. All right. Make sure there's no little pebbles inside of the mount, because that could also throw off its 0. And would you look at that? Nothing really all too surprising there. Still as close as I would expect something like this to be. All right, so the last test is going to be the water test. So this is going to be caps on, again, because I want to see exactly what these things will withstand. And you know what? I'm going to make sure there's no dirt inside here, because I want to give this as fair of an opportunity to defend itself as possible from what's about to happen next. All right, and I'm going to put it in there for probably about a minute or so. It is 4:44 and 15 seconds. And let's come back in about a minute or two. All right, so 4:45 and 20 seconds. I'm a bit impatient today because I want to see what this thing will do. And no surprise there, it's wet. But this time I'm actually going to blow it off. Except I'm going to avoid where the caps are to prevent any sort of water from going in when I blow it off or when I open up the caps. A little bit drop of water in there. But that happened from when I opened up the cap. It was around this little gasket. And get inside there. No surprise, it is on. Cool. Front cap. Again, only wet around the seal. That's pretty conclusive. So, needless to say, this thing's pretty water resistant and pretty shock proof. But I'm not quite convinced that that was enough of testing for this thing. I want to do this all over again. And to start off with that, we might as well start from the beginning, which is going to be the cup test with the caps open. Because, again, even though you might be walking through the woods or opening up your case at the range or something like that, not all the time you can't guarantee that your caps are going to be closed. You might think that your caps are closed, but what happens if they're not? You know what? Yep, that's pretty wet. Do I want to blow it off? Nope, not yet. Again, no surprise, ladies and gentlemen. It is still on. I think it's going to require a little bit more attitude to break this scope. I hear a little bit of crunching underneath this mount against the rail, so there's probably just a little bit of sand. But all things considered, it's still pretty damn close. Now, the deviation that we're seeing from dead center of that target to just above it could just be how non-precise this mount is. Now, this being a non-quick release mount, it's not designed to be removed and installed numerous times, especially considering how short it is. You know, figure if you have a rifle scope that uses 2 mounts, you're having twice as much surface area mounting it to the rail and keeping it true. So I'm not overly surprised that this thing isn't holding perfect zero, but needless to say, it's still holding pretty good. Now, the test after this was the drop onto dirt at 3 feet. I don't see the need to drop this onto dirt at 6 feet. Instead, I see the need to drop this onto stone, like we were doing before, at about 6 feet. So, let's see if this will do it in. That's got to be at least 6 feet. Yep, that's dry now. Where did that one land? Exact same spot. Top turret cap. Good little indent on there along with the protector. It's still on. I'm joking. You think that a little drop like that would kill this scope? I doubt it. But did that shift at 0? Or at least any noticeable amount? Oh, damn, this is actually kind of boring. That didn't move at all. All right, enough is enough. Do I do the sand test with the caps open, scratch up the glass inside? I think I wouldn't be paying testament to it if I didn't. Last thing I don't want to do is lose this, even though I think this is captive. No, it's not. All right, I do not want to lose the mount on this because if that thing decides it wants to go for a swim, I'm screwed. Get it? It's a nut. Sand test, open caps, take 2. Let's give it a good old shake. Shake and bake. Oh yeah, that's disgusting. I feel really bad for doing this, but you know what? The people have to know what their optic can withstand, and you know what? The glass is actually pretty good. It's still running. That's pretty damn legitimate. I'm gonna blow this thing off. I'm gonna take a look inside. Yeah, she's still running. It's a lot easier to see on camera with the front cap closed. There we go. It's still working. Caps are all tight. Caps are open. Let's see what this will do. We're currently at 450, 452. Let's give it another minute and see what she can do. 3, 2, and 1. That has been a minute. Oh, this water is nice and cold. It is mid-March, by the way, and it is not a pleasant feeling dunking your hand in hose water. So I give it a light blowing off. And again, the scope is still running like a champ. Close that front cap. Yep, as you can see, she's still working. And you know what? It's still nice and bright too. I'm going to blow out the caps on the inside, which is not advisable because what you could actually do is push water into the gaskets, but nothing I'm doing is advisable. And you can't really see in there. I can. And there is no moisture on the inside of the glass. A little streak right there. That's on the outside. So this thing withstood a lot so far. So what am I going to do next? Well, I've already done everything twice, except for the 6-foot drop test. I'm going to do that one more time. Cap's closed because I don't want to break the cap off. I'm actually kind of worried about that more than anything else. Let's see what we've got at... You know what? That was a pretty good fall. That one landed on the control section, right on the side. A little bit on top again. Very consistently dropping. And no surprise, again, it's still working. Damn, I'm sorry. You guys tuned in to watch a destruction video, and it seems to be pretty damn boring. Alright, we'll do this again. Let's mount it up. What the hell? This thing's pretty damn robust, if I may say so myself. I think I'm going to have to implore some different methods here. What should I do with you next? Dropped it, I've submerged it, I've kicked it around a play box for a couple of minutes. I think it's time to put you in the freezer for about a minute or two and see what all that water does to all the inside pieces that might still be wet. Let's go test out what this thing does in sub-zero temperatures. I don't have a way of freezing this other than with a regular freezer in my friend's kitchen, and they're currently eating. But let's see what this will do. What's the temperature inside the freezer? -2 degrees Fahrenheit. All right, so, oh, nope, that's gonna break something. Oh, right up there. It is 4:57. Let's give it about 5 minutes. All right, the time is almost 6 after. I think it's been in there long enough. It is cold. The cap is frozen. Up, and it's still on. This is boring. All right, I got one other trick up my sleeve, I reckon. It's time to crush it. All right, so I know my car is not the heaviest, but I think this will do just nicely. I'm probably going to leave it with controls up. I'm going to go over it once. Try not to destroy my bumper. And let's try once. Let's try once. Crack the wood. Oh, nope, I killed it. Ah, bug rat. Well, I guess that's what it took, ladies and gentlemen. But is it still working? Nope. Es muerte. Es muerte. So, what have we learned here today? You know, let's recap this in a quieter place. So I found out what it takes to kill one of these, and it's being run over by a car. That being said, though, I'm very impressed with the durability of this thing from both the drop test, submerging test, sand test, and even freeze test. I should have put it in the oven, but I did not have a small toaster oven that I could throw away. I did not want to put this inside of their very nice oven and destroy it. This thing is damn robust, and even so, the glass is still in good shape. A little hard to see. Now there is a little bit of condensation on the lens itself. See if I can get this
brightened up a little bit. But overall, this thing is extremely well built. I will say, though, that the control module being on the outside like this is a bit stupid, but I'm sure it keeps the cost down, which is why these are so inexpensive. But as you'll note with some of the newer red dots that are on the market, all the control panels seem to be inboard. All the buttons seem to be milled into the same housing. So that should prove like the Sig Romeo 5 that's coming soon. That should be pretty robust because the controls are on top. I don't know if there's anything external from the actual housing itself. That'll be interesting to test, but I'm not going to be testing it on an endurance basis like this. That's just going to be on a regular review because I bought that from my friend. With the exception, though, of this control cover breaking off, which was bound to happen. It was actually, from what I can gather, it is the weakest link on this scope. And it's clear to see why once you see the inner workings of it. The cap itself is just a very thin piece of pot metal. So this is all cast, obviously. None of this is machined. Little rubber cap. This actually could be pried off if need be, and it would have exposed all of it. There's two little ears on the front, which came right off. These go around the buttons, which the buttons are over here. Nice little buttons. They still have a good detent to them. I don't know if you could hear anything, but it doesn't really matter now. So those two little ears house the button module up the front. Then this cap covers up this little control module over here. So what happened, obviously, when I drove over it, it cracked the front two ears, squished this down, and that's all she wrote. But one thing to really note is what failed here wasn't the control board. The control board's actually still perfectly intact. The button control board is a little messed up right over here, but all the contacts are still good underneath it. It were these little chintzy, microscopic wires. These wires are so tiny and fragile that I'm amazed that this thing's held up as long as it has. This has got to be about a 4 or 5 year old scope. I bought it secondhand off of a buddy of mine, and it's been through some wear and tear. Nothing like today, though. But these wires are just so tiny. So no wonder why it broke. Literally, if I pull on this too hard, it comes right apart. And that's it. That's what speaks for all of them as well. It's not just that one. Look at that. And these are soldered on there pretty good. So that's what failed. It wasn't so much the casing itself. Yes, it did fail there, but these wires are just so chintzy that they actually just squished it in half and destroyed everything. If these were bigger, beefier wires, this might still be running. I did try fumbling around with this flathead screwdriver trying to get all the pins lined up and seeing if I can get it to turn on. But alas, because all these wires were sheared off, it was dead in the water. Coming off the button, they have a common ground and then a plus or a minus for, obviously, positive or negative for brightening up the scope. And the control board does some wonky stuff over here where you hold it, shut it off, it turns to green and red, vice versa. So a fairly simple board, all things considered. But unfortunately, because the wires were all frayed and I couldn't figure out where they went, usually when you pull a wire off a board, you can see some solder contacts or even some stray wires. But because the wires are so small, you can't see nothing on this. So I was really looking forward to getting this back up and running once I got pulled into the garage and took a look at it, but alas, this is shot. That basically concludes this video. However, there is going to be a part 2, and part 2 is going to be concerned with Vortex themselves. They do say that their warranty is basically the best in the business. It's time to put that to the test. I'm going to send them a very polite email tonight, not mentioning who I am, just saying I have a StrikeFire 2 that I took on a hike, and I fell on it fell off my whatever and landed on the control module and destroyed itself. And I'm going to see what they say. I'm curious to see if they're going to be willing to replace the scope or not. And if so, kudos to you, Vortex. That's damn awesome. If not, then I guess your warranty is a little bogus. But there's only one way to test that, and that's going to be in part 2 of this video, which I guess will happen when I get an affirmative answer from them, whether it's be yes or no. Anyway, that concludes part 1 of this video. Part 2 will be out, I guess, when I get an answer from Vortex themselves. So keep an eye out for that. And thank you very much for watching. See you again next time.